It is Banks Business with Banks Dastine's first podcast. And I'm here with my friend. He's a lawyer. He is also a comedian and also a production.
Yeah, so there you go. Like it's all like that's why I used to use meetup.com.
Meetups, okay.
Yeah, so and that's that helps me actually it helped me a lot with doing the stand-up stuff. If you produce a show, yeah, people are always looking for stuff to do. But outside of the gym, that was one of the ways I networked. Was I would do a hiking meetup, I'd go meet a lot of people. I dated through meetup.com. That's actually honestly, if you want to do a dating app that actually kind of works, go do meetup.com. And go find something that's fun on there that you want to go do. This is not promoted by meetup.com, by the way, and neither am I. But I will say it's a very useful tool for meeting new people, especially finding things that you want to go do. And I've used that to help promote events at restaurants and at businesses. And in fact, we've done it.
Yeah, you've done quite a few shows at my spot. You know, I remember doing COVID. We were making a killing just doing comedy.
Yeah.
So yes, I haven't used it lately, but I know people who use it a lot.
But that's the thing it's networking is going to, and I always thought for a while, networking was going to be around the people who do the same thing as you.
Okay.
Right. And I was wrong. I mean, sometimes it's not entirely wrong because as a lawyer, it's not entirely wrong because when you're an attorney, there's other lawyers and they do different things. So you'll go to and for lawyers, networking is going to a CLE. They have bar events and, you talk to other attorneys. I was never really good at that. I was never good at talking to other lawyers. I was always really good at talking to people who weren't attorneys.
Okay.
So that's why.
As a paralegal, I'm a paralegal also.
Yeah.
Yeah. But.
Well, not even a paralegal. I'm talking about like people who I would meet in the gym and in the sauna or on a hike, and they would be like, hey, my grandmother died last week. How do I resolve her estate? I got pulled over by the police in this town. How do I handle this ticket? I'm having an issue with my employment or my retirement. How do I resolve that? And even if I can't necessarily help them, I can give them an understanding up front of what I do understand and what I can maybe be able to do to help them find somebody who can handle that kind of work.
So once they find out you're a lawyer, you're an attorney, you get all kind of questions. And
yeah,
you're definitely very helpful in society. You're helping people maneuver the legal aspect of everything, because this country has so much law.
It is.
I never understand why. I came from a free country. When I say free country, here it's too much law.
They just call this a free country. It's America.
I love that. Ruled by law.
It is. It is a country ruled by laws. But and there's good to that and there's bad to that. There's, it holds up things. There's zoning.
More structure. I like it though.
Yeah. Well, it's like learning the rules to Monopoly, right? It's like playing a board game and you figure it out and then you go, okay, I understand this now. That's what I actually always explain to people. Becoming a lawyer was basically like learning the rules to a board game that not everybody else knows the rules to. And then there's a thing called civil procedure, and that's the rules to the rules of the board game. So, not everybody. Imagine playing Monopoly, but you didn't know every time you pass go, you get $200.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a lot of people are doing in life. Whether it's, when they get married, they don't know that, if they get divorced, there's going to be all these effects to their livelihood, their debts, what they owe, what they own, when people die, when you write a will, if you don't have a will, if you make a trust, what do all these things, or what are all these things involved?
Very good conversation you're having right now. This is probably conversation for another podcast.
Yeah.
So we can definitely show our audience, what is will, what is, estate, what is a trust, how to set one up, because a lot of people do not have those. Me, myself, I don't have a will,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm young, I don't need one, but...
Well, especially if you have family, if you have kids, and so that there's a lot, and there's a lot that you have to think of going into that, what assets you have, so there's a lot that goes into those things. I used to do a podcast called Punk Law 101, and it was me and a friend of mine who's also an attorney who works for Legal Aid in New Jersey, and we did it for a bit during the pandemic, and we talked a lot about those kind of things.
All these the attorneys switching field.
He still works for Legal Aid in New Jersey. I convinced him. I pulled him out.
Comedy. I don't know.
Here's the thing. I always wanted to be a comedian, right? That was it. I wanted to be that since I was 10 years old.
Being a lawyer, become a comedian.
Well, that's what I've been trying to do. It takes time. That takes time.
It doesn't pay, I guess. Not as much.
Yeah,
Why you make $500,000 a year?
Nah, nowhere near that. If I made $500,000 a year, do you think I look like this?
No, you don't look like this. You want to look like this. You don't want people, it's the perception. Oh, I don't have money, but you're the type we have money.
See.
It just makes...
Well, the thing with the lawyer thing is people think I have money, and that's actually the bigger weird part of the perception, is that they have no idea what my financial situation is. People just assume if you're a lawyer, you have money. It used to be like that. It used to be like in the 90s and the early 2000s.
There's more true than it was in the 90s. 90s are probably making 45, 55,000. Now you're a quarter millions. You can if you want to.
So here's the difference of what happened in the law industry over the last 30 years, right?
Educate me on that.
First off, you have the internet that came along. You have people can now use things like LegalZoom to help figure out things like speeding tickets, making a will, drafting a will. You could do that with LegalZoom. Yes, I'm promoting the things that I'm
taking money away from you.
Well, and this becomes a thing of the law should be accessible. That's actually where I kind of feel like LegalZoom is I don't think LegalZoom is necessarily doing everybody a favor.
I think there's another cops I use, but it's not so much LegalZoom.
But my point of view on it is, I actually think the law should be more accessible. It wasn't as accessible in the 90s and the early 2000s. So you needed a lawyer to do a lot of things that you don't need a lawyer to do anymore. So that's a huge part of it. The people on the top are making a lot of money. I think that's the major difference. Is the people
who are you talking about?
Not even corporate lawyers, but the people on the top of the law firms are making a lot of money. But the people who are coming out of law school, people who are coming out with lots of law debt, because law school costs a lot of money. The only, the cheapest law school I can tell you about is City University of New York in Queens, in Long Island City. That's actually relatively cheap. It's a public interest law school, and it's really meant to be training people to become public defenders, to go work for legal aid. I went to Rutgers in Newark, which it used to be Rutgers School of Law in Newark, and there was Rutgers School of Law Camden. They were considered two separate schools. Now they're considered one school. And when I went there, it wasn't cheap, but it was cheaper than most other law schools because it is a state university, and Rutgers is well known. But you got in-state tuition if you were living in New Jersey, and it was actually pretty easy, relatively speaking, to get in-state tuition for Rutgers compared to other law schools.
So you come out with so much debt after law school, and then the pay you're getting is not going to offset that. It takes you years.
Yeah, well, it takes you years to even get money, to get paid. What do you think a lawyer's making right now coming out of law school?
At least $100,000.
No way, man. Maybe now, because I became a lawyer 8 years ago, right? I did not get an offer for a single job over $50,000. Well, actually, no, one single job for $60,000 to do personal injury. But that was after I was already working as an attorney for 8 months, and I decided to stay with the firm I was at the time because I actually did like the place I was at, and I liked the people who I worked with. And it was a big mistake, partially because the guy who I worked for had a change of heart in how he was operating, and then he gave me a raise, but he did not give the attorney who was also working for him, the other attorney who had been working for him for, I think at that point, a dozen years, a raise. And we were making the same amount when I walked in. And I was not making that much money. And that guy, now there's a reason why that guy was okay with it, right? For initially. But he found out I was getting a raise because the guy told him, the owner of the law firm told him. That might have been a mistake on its own end. But you never know, because I maybe would have told him I got a raise anyway. So he decided to be upfront with him and say, hey, I gave Walter a raise because I went to my boss and said, listen, they're offering me $60,000. It's more than what you're paying me, but I like being here. I like the work that we're doing. I like the workload. I'm learning more on how to be an on-the-ground lawyer. I'm able to bring in my cases and bring in different kind of things. Whereas if I went to go work for a personal injury firm, they wouldn't take things like, hey, you want to go work on a DUI this week? There's not a lot. New Jersey makes it easier to be general practice attorneys, but it's not as common anymore as it used to be.
Okay.
And a lot of times personal injury attorneys, they'll only really do certain things that are outside the realm of personal injury. They might do workers' compensation, which is if you're hurt on the job. If you want, you can't sue your employer for personal injury. You sue them for workers' compensation. So, and that's a different rate, and there's a different court system for it. In fact, it's actually administrative law. So it's a whole different setup. But so a lot of attorneys do that because they go hand in hand. It's very similar. They're both based off the settlement of what you eventually get or whatever you get at trial.